"You look tired, sir," said the little alien girl. The man never expected her to change his life. Commander James Reeves had seen 17 star systems, fought in 4 wars, and lost count of how many friends he'd buried in the cold vacuum of space. The UN Expeditionary Fleet had sent him to Kepler 442b as a cultural liaison, a fancy term for babysitting humanity's newest diplomatic disaster. The locals, the Varani, were a peaceful species with translucent blue skin and oversized eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. James didn't want to be here. He didn't want to be anywhere. The marketplace of New Varath buzzed with activity, if one could call the gentle humming and soft clicking of the Varani buzzing. Merchants displayed their wares, crystalline fruits that chimed when touched, fabrics that shifted colors with the viewer's mood, technology that James couldn't begin to understand. He walked through it all with the mechanical precision of a man going through motions, his military jacket hanging loose on a frame that had once been more substantial. "You look tired." "Sir?" The voice was small, almost musical. James stopped and looked down. A Varani child, no more than waist-high, stood before him, her 4-fingered hand clutching a strange flower that pulsed with bioluminescence. Her enormous eyes studied him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Most Varani avoided him. Humans were still strange to them, still suspicious after the territorial disputes of the previous year. "I'm fine," James said, the lie automatic. "No," the child said simply. "You carry heaviness here." She touched her chest where a human heart would be. James felt something crack inside him. 3 months ago, his daughter, his Sophie, had died in a transport accident. She'd been 7 years old, the same age this alien child appeared to be, though he knew Varani aged differently. "You should go back to your parents," he said, his voice rougher than intended. "Mother says humans don't understand the sharing. That's why you're so sad all the time." The sharing? The little Varani, he didn't even know her name, held out the flower. "When something heavy happens, we share it. The whole community carries it together. No one is alone with pain." James stared at the glowing flower. Humans don't do that. Why not?" Such a simple question, why not? Because we're taught to be strong, he thought. Because showing weakness is dangerous. Because I'm a soldier and soldiers don't break down in alien marketplaces. Because we think we have to carry things ourselves, he finally said. The child tilted her head, a gesture that seemed to indicate confusion across species. "That sounds lonely." It was. God, it was so lonely. James hadn't cried at Sophie's funeral, hadn't cried when he packed up her room, hadn't cried when he requested transfer to the furthest posting he could find, just to escape the empty space in his home that screamed her absence. "May I share with you?" the little alien asked. Before James could answer, she pressed the flower into his hand. It was warm, and the moment his skin touched it, he felt something. Not quite telepathy. The Varani weren't telepathic, but a sensation of presence, of being witnessed, of not being alone. The child's mother appeared, moving with the flowing grace typical of her species. She started to apologize, to pull her daughter away, but stopped when she saw James's face. Tears were streaming down his cheeks, the first tears since Sophie died. "I'm sorry," James choked out. "I'm so sorry. I don't—" "Shh," the mother said, her accented standards surprisingly gentle. "Zalima has strong empathy, even for our kind. She feels when people hurt." Other Varani began to gather, not crowding but forming a loose circle. Each held a small glowing flower. They didn't speak, didn't touch him, but James felt their presence like a warm blanket against the cold that had settled in his bones. "We heard about your daughter," Salima's mother said quietly. "When humans hurt, you hide it. Push it down. We wanted to help but didn't know how. Zalima is young. She doesn't know she's not supposed to approach the grieving human. I lost my sister to the dust fever last season," Zalima said, her voice still holding that strange musical quality. "It hurt so much I thought I would disappear. But everyone shared with me. The hurt is still there, but it's smaller now. Spread out." James sank down to his knees, no longer caring about military bearing or diplomatic protocol. The little alien girl stepped forward and wrapped her thin arms around his neck. She hummed, a low resonant sound that vibrated through his chest. Other Varani joined in, not touching him but humming in harmony. The sound wasn't music exactly. It was something older, more primal, a wordless acknowledgement of pain, of loss, of the universal weight of grief. For the first time in 3 months, James Reeves let himself break. He stayed in the marketplace for an hour, maybe more. The Varani cycled through, each spending a few minutes in the circle before being replaced by another. Zelima stayed the whole time, her small hand in his, occasionally humming that deep, resonant note. When James finally stood, the crushing weight that had sat on his chest since Sophie's death hadn't disappeared, but it had changed. It was no longer a boulder he carried alone. It was a stone shared among many hands. "Thank you," he said, his voice hoarse. Zelima smiled, a gesture her species had learned from humans. "Will you share with us sometimes? Tell us about your daughter. In my culture, the dead live as long as we remember them." James nodded, not trusting his voice. That evening, he sent a message back to Earth, not requesting another transfer, not requesting discharge. Instead, he asked for grief counseling resources. He contacted other soldiers in his unit, started conversations about loss, about weight, about the things they all carried silently. Humans didn't have the Varani's biological capacity for emotional resonance, but they could learn. They could choose to share their burdens instead of suffering alone. A little alien girl had taught Commander James Reeves that strength wasn't in carrying pain alone. Strength was in having the courage to let others help carry it. The flower Zelima had given him sat on his desk, still glowing softly in the dark. A reminder that even across the vast distances between stars, between species, between worlds, compassion was universal, and sometimes it took the wisdom of a child to show that truth.